We're going to be doing Read Between the Lines today. Make sure you have this in front of you. It says Wednesday on it. So you're going to read each passage and then respond to the questions. Each question will ask you to make a logical inference based on details from the text. Explain your answers by referencing the text. This is always what we're practicing when we take our test too. We'll usually have an open-ended response. We have to state our answer and then cite text-based evidence. So the first one says, Charlotte was pet-sitting her uncle's pet boa constrictor. When she went to check on him the next morning, he was missing. There also seemed to be fewer hamsters in the next cage. What is the most likely conclusion? What happened to the hamsters? So we're going to start by rephrasing the question. It says, what is the most likely conclusion? We're going to say the most likely conclusion is, you might have to pause the video to get your answer written down, and that's fine. You can pause it as many times as you need. The most likely conclusion is that the boa constrictor got out and he ate some of the hamsters. Our evidence for that is Charlotte notices the snake is missing. She also notices that there seem to be fewer hamsters in the cage. Since I know that snakes usually eat small rodents, I can infer that the snake ate the hamsters. We had an introductory sentence, we supported it with details from the story, and we had a conclusion sentence. Make sure all of those elements are in your answer. Don't just write, the snake ate the hamster. No, that's not a complete, thorough answer. That might have worked in second, third, maybe even fourth grade. It doesn't work in fifth grade. You need to have a paragraph answer. All right, number 2. Isaac didn't want to sit by the new kid. He'd rather sit all by himself. He didn't want to make any friends. After the teacher handed out assignments, the new kid leaned over. Hey, my name is Rocky. Isaac didn't look up from his textbook. Rocky didn't take Isaac's silence personally. Instead, he stole a glance at the notebook on which Isaac was drawing. Rocky noticed that Isaac was drawing a guitar with skulls on it. Rocky asked politely, "Who's your favorite band?" Isaac ignored him. Rocky continued, "My favorite band is the Lords of Death." Isaac looked up at him for the first time. Hello, Rocky. My name is Isaac. I believe that we are going to be great friends. Why did Isaac suddenly respond in a positive way to Rocky's question? We're going to start by rephrasing the question in our answer. Isaac suddenly responded in a positive way to Rocky's question because they made a connection. Because he was also into rock bands, or he was also into bands. Isaac suddenly responded in a positive way to Rocky's question because they made a connection. They realized they had something in common. Rocky realized from the drawing that Isaac was doing that they were probably into the same bands, and so he used that to make a connection when he said that his favorite band was Lords of Death. So we are answering the question. We're citing text-based evidence that he saw the drawing and that he's asking about the band Lords of Death. How did Rocky know this was the best way to win Isaac's friendship? Rocky knew that this was the best way to win Isaac's friendship by looking at his drawing. Rocky noticed that he was drawing a guitar with skulls on it, and he knows that kids who draw guitars with skulls on it typically like rock bands. He too was interested in rock bands. So he asked Rocky about the band Lords of Death to make that connection with him. During the California gold rush of 1849, the world's supply of gold more than doubled, and hundreds of thousands of people rushed to California to find their share. boom towns popped up to accommodate the visitors. A boom town is a community that receives sudden and explosive growth and development. San Francisco had around 200 residents in 1846 and about 36,000 in 1852. The few merchants in these boom towns sold goods to more than 10 times what they cost back east. For example, a single pound of flour sold for as much as $17. That's like more than flour costs today, and this was back in the 1800s. Not everyone who joined the California gold rush got rich, but most of the boomtown merchants did. So, first of all, there's some funny F's going on. The F's in the passage, like for find and for flour, turned out to be little characters instead of actually F's. So, if you were having trouble following along, I know that that's what those words are. Why were boomtown merchants able to sell their products for so much money? We're going to rephrase the question in our answer. Boomtown merchants were able to sell their products for so much money because there were no other merchants and gold miners had a lot of gold. There was a lot of people that came to the boomtown, but there wasn't a lot of merchants selling things there. So that's why they could sell it for more. It's all supply and demand. I got the supply, I can make it whatever I want. How do you know this? This is when we cite our text-based evidence. Normally, we would cite our text-based evidence in our response, but since this had a part A and part B, we're going to cite it on part B. How do I know this? I know this because the text mentions few merchants. That is a direct quote from the text. It says the few merchants in these boomtowns. And the text says how the cost was different than the cost back east. It's all in the same sentence, actually. The few merchants in these boomtowns sold goods for more than 10 times what they cost back east. The text also mentions that the world's supply of gold more than doubled. So that is 3 quotes from the text. There were few merchants. It was different than what it cost back east. And the world's supply of gold more than doubled. So we know that the boomtown merchants were able to sell their stuff for so much money because they were the only merchants. It was different than it cost back east. The gold miners had lots of gold because it said the world's supply of gold more than doubled. You don't have to have exactly what I say, but you do have to have something similar and have text-based evidence.